Well, many folks around here know Sara Foster as the purveyor of wonderful food and fellowship at Foster's Market in Durham and in Chapel Hill. But across the country, they know her as the communicator about food, bringing us wonderful and lovely cookbooks, the latest of which is Sara Foster's Southern Kitchen, and she'll talk to us about that book on North Carolina Bookwatch next.
Funding for North Carolina Bookwatch is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV, and by the North Carolina Humanities Council.
Welcome to North Carolina Bookwatch. I'm D.G. Martin, and my guest is Sara Foster. She's the author, the producer of this magnificent book, Southern Kitchen, which is more than just a book, isn't it, Sara Foster?
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on, D.G.
Well, I'm excited to have you. You have so many friends, and many of your friends you don't even know because they just come into your wonderful, friendly markets to enjoy coffee and pastries every morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have an extended family. So many people just show up every day, like you said, for maybe a little lunch, a little coffee, muffins, conversation.
Well, the other thing, you're a North Carolinian now, but you grew up in Tennessee, which used to be a part of North Carolina. So we claim you. But you've lived in North Carolina a long time after a little bit of time in New York.
Yeah, I was in New York and Connecticut for a number of years, so I moved here from Connecticut about 20 years ago.
And you brought some of the rewards from a friendship with a famous person. You were a really pretty close colleague of Martha Stewart. And understudy, is that the right word?
Yeah, definitely.
Or partner, what's the better word?
Definitely Martha is one of my mentors. I mean, I worked for her years when she had a catering business in Connecticut. I was the chef of her catering business and just learned a tremendous amount from her, not only about food, but about style and living and gardening, and it was just a great experience.
Well, all this is leading up to a question, and that is, was it you're growing up kind of in rural Middle Tennessee? I don't want to say a country, but folks in North Carolina would understand that sort of experience. Is that the source of this new book, or is the source of the new book all of this? And this is unfair, the pizzazz and the presentation and the color and the importance of how things look that you and Martha Stewart worked out together.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I feel like I've kind of come full circle. I mean, for me, growing up with my grandparents and my parents in Tennessee, you know, we always had a garden and my grandparents farmed, and it's really great now to see so many people getting back into gardening and growing their own produce and really understanding and knowing where their food comes from, not only, you know, by supporting our local farmers markets, but just people having backyard gardens again. So it's really great to see that.
Well, you've titled this book Sara Foster's Southern Kitchen. And this comes on the heels of several successful cookbooks. Why'd you have to do another, and why is it so branded as Southern Kitchen?
Well, I think Southern food has always been my roots, like I said, growing up, and this is my 4th cookbook, and I feel like my other 3 cookbooks have had a little bit of Southern food in them, but for me, this is really my most personal cookbook. It has a lot of family recipes, a lot of family stories. It's not just a cookbook. It's got a lot of great photographs in it, but really a lot of traditional recipes and kind of my take on Southern food, which tends to be a little more seasonal, a little bit lighter, a little bit fresher, things that you can cook quickly. I always say I tend to cook my greens closer to 4 minutes instead of 4 hours, like my mom and grandmother did.
So that northern experience has conditioned your response to greens in a little bit different way, more a little healthier, a
little bit healthier, and I just think it fits within our lifestyle today. I mean, I think people don't have a lot of time to cook or plan cooking, but it's important to eat fresh food and to eat good food and to be able to sit down at the table with your family or with your friends. So I tend to try to give my readers recipes that they can manage, you know, things that they can do after working all day to come home and put a great meal on the table.
Well, this is not really on the fresh end. I want to get to the fresh end, but one of the classic Southern foods, and I guess in Tennessee as well as North Carolina and throughout the South, is grits.
Grits, right.
And where did your ideas about grits come from? Did they come from over in Tennessee or New York or here? And what do you do with grits to make it easy for us to cook now?
Well, I have to say, growing up, I really didn't like grits because the only kind of grits I had ever had were, you know, those kind of white pasty things that were on the plate.
Yeah,
no, just, you know, white grits
gotcha.
without a lot of flavoring in them. And then I learned that you could make grits with all different kinds of flavoring in them, like cheese and butter and herbs. And one of my favorite recipes in the cookbook is cheese grits with roasted butternut squash and blue cheese. So it's, you know, I soon learned that, you know, you could have grits not just for breakfast. It's, you know, they could be a lunch or a dinner thing as well.
And did you come to that, were you forced into that, or was that something that you, that you drifted into and from your cooking experience found that grits could be the new pasta?
Yeah, I think, you know, being exposed, first of all, to really good grits, you know, really good stone ground. I like yellow grits, but, you know, it's like anything. If you have a good product, you're going to end up with a good dish.
So it does make it, that's fun, that's new to me, that you have to be careful. For me, grits is a commodity, and you go for the lowest price, and you're going to correct me on
that? I'm going to say you shouldn't do that, because those are those kind of grits that I was saying that I grew up on that don't have a lot of flavor. But if you get a really good, fresh, stone ground grit, you know, that has a little coarser grind to it, it's going to have so much more flavor. And it's like anything that's fresh. You know, if you get it right when it's been milled, it's going to taste a lot better than, you know, it's been on a truck or in your grocery store on the shelf for 6 months. You know, that freshness is really going to come out in the flavor.
Where can you go? Again, you're helping me. I would go to the grocery store, and it's packaged so it's all the same. Where would you go for the fresh stone ground grits? Well,
you can order them online. There's a great company in South Carolina called Anson Mills, and they have, I think, the best grits. But there are a lot of people doing artisan grits now. So I would just search the internet. Places like Southern Seasons and Foster's Market also sell them. Most specialty stores have really good quality grits.
Well, let's talk about some of the I thought I was getting into staples that weren't fresh, and now you've taught me a lesson that even grits are fresh, so you have to be careful. Now, can you get fresh grits all year long?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can get them anytime.
You can't get fresh corn all year long, but you can get fresh.
Yeah,
how does that work?
Well, they dry the corn, and then it's when they grind it. It's like roasting coffee. You know, you take your coffee bean and then you roast it, and then when you grind it, that's when it releases that fresh flavor.
Well, I'm way off the way off the program. But so theoretically, like coffee, where some people grind, get the coffee beans and then
you grind it daily.
So you could get your dried corn and grind it yourself in your coffee grinder, maybe.
Well, I don't know about that, but you can get it from Anson Mills, ground really fresh, and it does make a difference in the flavor.
Well, you've got a cheesy grits casserole.
Yeah, that one's great too.
Would that be a simple deal to one of your simpler things, or is that complicated?
No, that one's really simple, and that's what I call one of those recipes that cook themselves. Anything that you can kind of just mix up, put in the oven, and it kind of just cooks itself. So really the part of that recipe that is going to take you the most time is mixing the ingredients, and then you put it in the oven and it cooks and it comes out, and you've got a great grits dish.
That's great. Well, I want to talk about the other challenge. You've already set me straight on so much that I'm afraid to ask you another question, but there's nothing fresh in the wintertime. What do you do? You're a fresh foods nut, I guess. Where do you go in the winter to hold to your idea that fresh is always better?
Well, there are fresh things in the winter. I mean, we can, in this area especially, you know, we can get things like turnip greens and collard greens most of the winter, things like sweet potatoes, you know, so there are those kind of things that you can get fresh, but, you know, you can always supplement them with things that you get from the grocery store, or, you know, just having a great piece of sausage or a great piece of fish and some nice salad greens. You know, there's always options.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you're a faster cooker greens person than your grandmother was. And so, how do you, and with sweet potatoes, so you got greens and sweet potatoes, what do you do with them in the wintertime to make them so that they don't get monotonous if you have them every night?
Well, with my greens, sometimes I'll dice up a little bit of country ham and put country ham or bacon in them to give them a little bit of flavoring. Sometimes I'll just flavor them with a little bit of vinegar and olive oil. And it's also pairing them with different things. Like sometimes I will serve them, you know, with on a bed of rice or on a bed of grits. So it's kind of what you put with it too that I think changes the flavor. As for sweet potatoes, I mean, they're so delicious. You know, you can just do something simple like cutting them in half and roasting them in the oven, and they get nice and crispy on one side, and then they're just soft and sweet on the inside.
Well, now we've talked about fresh vegetables, and they're also an idea, I think, that you like fresh meats as well, and fresh chickens, and you've got some great ideas for what to do with meats.
Yeah.
And I should have mentioned pigs too.
Yeah, pigs, absolutely. I mean, again, the book has things in it like just a simple, you know, weeknight pork chop that you can come home and cook pretty quickly. It also has things in it like my grandmother's Sunday fried chicken, which I had every day of my life on Sundays. So when you have a little more time, you know, on the weekend and you might want to make fried chicken, it's got a great fried chicken recipe. Has things in it like barbecue turkey or deep fried turkey, a lot of beef recipes, braised brisket, a fillet of beef that's grilled and then roasted. So just, you know, across the board, a lot of meat, fish, chicken, and definitely pork.
All right, I want to talk about two things. My favorite, first of all, chicken. And I mean, you can tell by looking at me. I don't know what I'm talking about on these things, but you've got some good suggestions for chicken that maybe I and people of my level of cooking could manage.
Well, yeah, one of my favorites is the brown bag chicken, and that's just like a perfect roast chicken. I mean, we all love.
Brown bag.
Yeah, it's called brown bag chicken, and we all love roast chicken. It's like one of the most comforting foods that you can eat, and so easy to cook. But this chicken, it's a whole roast chicken, and you actually put it in a brown bag, a brown paper bag, tie up the end, and put it in the oven to roast. And what the bag does is it keeps all of that moisture in while it's cooking. So when the chicken comes out, it's going to be just really, really tender and succulent.
Well, why doesn't the bag catch the drippings and catch on fire?
I don't know. It just doesn't.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it really works.
So that's simple. So you just put the chicken, I know you do. You get it out of the cellophane bag or whatever it comes in and wash it off, and then put some salt or something on it.
Yeah, I rub it with like a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and a little bit of paprika. And paprika gives it that nice kind of golden color all on the outside. And
just a regular brown bag, you tie it up and put it in the oven at 400 or
about 375. I mean, you don't want your oven really, really hot because it might catch on fire, but I've cooked it that way forever and never had a problem. The important thing too is to make sure your oven is large enough that the bag's not touching the top of the sides or the electric burner.
Maybe people like me should call their fire department before you give them an alert. But I love that. All right, more controversially, this is more controversial. Golly, I can't say. People have a difference of opinion about barbecue. In North Carolina, we generally divide east and west, or Lexington and Goldsboro, whole hog or shoulders, and tomato or not. I mean, we divide up on that. And here you come from Tennessee, and you bring us a whole new way of doing barbecue. How do you tiptoe around these divisions and not get caught as a foreigner trying to tell us something else.
Well, I think I probably am a foreigner in North Carolina when it comes to barbecue, because I'm a real barbecue snob, because I'm from West Tennessee, and the barbecue there is totally different. You know, barbecue's like chili. Everybody has their own favorite, like, region style. But for me, the West Tennessee barbecue is the to die for barbecue.
What's different about it and why? And then how do you get around confrontations with North Carolinians about their...
Well, I don't. I mean, I have those confrontations all the time because they think that North Carolina barbecue is better, rightfully so. You know, I mean, I think it's like you know, basketball here in North Carolina.
Give us the elevator speech or the evangelical speech when you're trying to convert us from our way of doing it to West Tennessee.
You just have to taste it.
Well, why? What are the...
Well, West Tennessee barbecue is typically slow cooked, like North Carolina barbecue over hickory.
Whole, is it all the... You put
They
everything?
will either do the whole pig usually, or shoulders or butts, but for the most part it's the whole pig. And then
That part sounds like Eastern North Carolina. I mean, there are people in West who cook
Right.
the whole pig too, but okay, so we're starting out the same.
Yeah, and so then I think it's in the process of putting it on the sandwich or the plate, you know, however they're going to prepare it. So in West Tennessee, they pull the pork off of the pig, you know, in big chunks.
Big chunks.
It's in really big chunks. Put it on the plate or the sandwich, you know, whatever they're going to put it on. Put a red tomato barbecue sauce on it that's a little bit sweet and spicy. So it's more of a thick barbecue sauce than the vinegar style that's here in North Carolina. And then they usually put coleslaw, you know, on the bun. So you have these big chunks of pork. And then in North Carolina, they chop everything up and they mix the sauce with the barbecue, and then they put it on the sandwich.
So it's not much different except in that final preparation and
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah, absolutely.
And the sauce is a little bit different.
Right. And actually, when I go to Allen & Son here in Chapel Hill, I will ask them not to chop my barbecue.
Oh, really? And they'll
do it for
they'll
me.
do it for
yeah.
you.
I'm like, can you just make my sandwich from the pork before you chop it? And they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, now you're a celebrity. Can the rest of us do that? you think?
Probably,
You
yeah.
think?
I mean, try it sometime. I think you'll like it.
Well, Sara Foster, we might come back and talk about some recipes, but I can't let you go without talking about the photography in your book.
Yeah, the photography's beautiful.
What is and this is what leads me to say you're more than an author, you're a producer. This is a media, your book is a media production with many lovely pictures of the foods that you tell us how to cook, and we're never going to make them look that good when we cook them. So do you have to, like when we dress up for like a wedding picture, a formal picture, we get, you know, we don't really look the way that we do.
Right.
We look better. And is that what you're striving for?
That's really not with our food. I mean, I have to say all of the food in this book, you know, it really wasn't changed in any way. Like when I was in New York, I used to do food styling. And we would paint the food or spray the food or color different colors. Yeah. And we don't do that at all in my cookbooks. I mean, I really want this food to look like something you could make, because you need to know what it's going to look like when it gets finished. And all of this food, like half of the days that we would do the shoots, we would plan the dishes that we were going to shoot so we could take a break for lunch and go, okay, we're going to have this for lunch today. So, you know, all the food in the book was shot, you know, and then we would eat it.
Well, tell us about the challenges that you've faced. You were kind enough to share on your website a video of one of the photography shoots, and it's tough work.
Yeah, it is.
And so, what part do you play?
What
part do you play, and who's the crew?
Well, the crew is the photographer, great photographer from Charleston, South Carolina, Peter Frank Edwards, and he kind of acts as not only the photographer but the art director. I say all the time he's also wearing many hats. So it's really a small crew compared to, you know, like if you were doing a major magazine shoot or maybe another book. But I have a crew of about 4 people. It's the photographer, his assistant. I have a person that works with me that helps me prep all the food and get together the props like the napkins and the plates and the glasses and things like that. But it's once you get the plate of food made, then you have to think about, okay, what's the angle going to be, and where's the light source coming from, and what else do we need to fit on the page? Like, if we're going to put type on the page, you know, you might want to have something blown out in the background. So it's really a lot to think about other than just shooting the food. But it's fun too. I mean, I have to say it takes my business that I love, that, you know, my passion is food and cooking, but it kind of takes it to a different level.
You're an artist. You got an artist in you, and that's the, well, that's, I think it's fascinating. And it leads me to the question about the market for the book. And there are serious cooks who will want to, who are admirers and fans from their prior cookbooks. And then there are other people who are like people who like to read travel books but don't travel.
Right.
And there are people who love to know about cooking but they're not going to even. So do you have that market in mind as you're putting this together? People like me who just love the pretty pictures and get hungry, but
I don't think really when I'm doing it, because I'm so involved in the actual food and the recipe and how it's going to taste. I mean, I go to great lengths to like test all my recipes time and time again to make sure they not only work for me, but they work for the home cook too, because everyone's stove is different and everyone has, you know, your skillet's going to be different, the amount of heat it gets is going to be different. So it's really important for me, and when I'm in the process, I think about, you know, what the recipe's going to taste like. But then when I'm out on book tour, it is great to hear people that collect cookbooks, and they're like, oh, well, I never cook, but I just love like reading and looking at the cookbook.
Well, in your book, you tell stories, and I wish we had time for you to tell some of the stories about your grandmama and your family. But where do these stories come from, other than just your memories? Did you write them down when you were a little girl?
No, it's really just memories and life experiences. I mean, one of my favorite parts of the book, and you were talking about traveling, is there's a sidebar called Sidetrack. And it's kind of great places to eat off the beaten path, like the best barbecue joint or the best catfish place or a place down in South Carolina that has really good desserts.
Well, I have to say, I don't want to say what's my favorite part, but if you pushed me on the book, for me, this is just one of the nicest pieces of the book, because in almost every state, in every region that you cover in the South, you've got at least one little country place where locals go, and it's not only does it look good, but you get good home cooking there. And that, thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's
and great pictures.
And
great
each
pictures.
of those have their own little story, so that's kind of just a little plus to the book.
Yeah,
but I love that part.
That was an extra. Well, real quickly, people who know Sara Foster and know about her connection with Martha Stewart always want me to say, tell us real quickly, what was it like to work with Martha Stewart?
It was really fun. I mean, as I said earlier, I learned a tremendous amount. I mean, I went from working in a restaurant in New York City that was actually in a basement to working on her farm in Connecticut. So it was just, we had a kitchen, you know, that was detached from her house. But right outside our kitchen door were these just beautiful gardens, and I could walk outside, you know, at any time I wanted and, you know, pick a handful of fresh rosemary or fresh basil, or, you know, just we had all these things to just cook from. So it was a great time. And we used to do huge catering events. Like, we would cater parties for 5,000 people. I mean, I look back on that now and I'm like, I don't know how we did that.
Well, in a sense, you've created a mini Martha Stewart empire down here, and gosh, how to ask this question? Are there you're not the biggest frog in the biggest pond, you're a big frog in a pretty big pond. Is there a sort of feeling, well, maybe I would rather get out of North Carolina and go back to where the big city is?
Not at all, no. I go there all the time, and sometimes, like I was just on Martha's show a couple of weeks ago, she always, when I have a new book out, she really helps me promote it, which is great. And it's amazing when I go there now, because see what she's done really in such a short period of time. But there's no way that I would want to be in that empire or that rat race. I'm pretty happy here in North Carolina and have my hands full.
All right, so you're going to stay in North Carolina. What are you going to do now? You've got 2 branches of Foster's Market. Is that enough? Or
yeah, that's enough.
no plans to expand that brand?
No plans at this moment to expand. But I never say never.
Okay, never say. All right. Well, the other thing is that people who will get excited about this book then always want to know: have you got another one in somewhere deep down inside, or are you working on it now?
I'm not working on another book now, but yeah, I always have a few ideas. I might expand the sidetracked idea and do like a little guidebook, you know, for my favorite places to eat in the South. And there also were a lot more of my grandmother's recipes that were not included in this book, so I really want to preserve those. So even if I just do that book for my family, I probably will continue to finish that part of it.
I'd like to have either one of those books.
Yeah.
As much as I really have enjoyed this latest book, Sara Foster's Southern Kitchen, and your generosity in sharing all of that with folks here on North Carolina Bookwatch. Thanks, Sara Foster.
Well, thank you, DG, for letting me share it. It's been fun.
And thanks to every one of you for watching and enjoying this with me. Our guest, of course, has been Sara Foster, and her newest book is Sara Foster's Southern Kitchen. I hope you'll join us next week, same time, when I'll introduce you to another one of North Carolina's great writers. See you then.
Funding for North Carolina Bookwatch is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV, and by the North Carolina Humanities Council.